Welcome everybody to the Double OG's podcast. Here myself, Franco G3 on X and Master Zephyr 11 on X. So today's subject is going to be about how to drive forward. How, from your knowledge of yourself, you're going to use that as a baseline for you to make your moves and go ahead in the world, right? But having that assertiveness and that confidence when you do it. Because what I find is very much of a recurring issue when it comes to the individuals that I'm speaking with is they're overthinking a lot. Their overthinking is at the same time a sign of either intelligence used under the wrong premise, which is not moving forward, right? But at the same time, it is cowardice, but because they don't fully have confidence of themselves, right? It is one thing once you understand what happens with knowing yourself, but it's another thing when it comes to actually knowing the world that you're driving yourself into. You have your subjective reality, you have the objective reality of the world, but you're going to confront yourself with subjective realities of other people around. So technically, it's a battle. It's a battle of frames. It's a battle of yourself against other, but also against yourself, right? So you need to understand how to move forward. This goes beyond girls. Girls is just some slideshow. It's not that important. The logic behind it, the drive behind it, is what is, because that is going to direct your move forward. And if you don't have that running train behind you, you're going to stay still and you're going to stay on the platform. And that's what overthinking does. Overthinking is not, it is used a lot of time as an excuse not to do anything because you're considering too many different variables. But also, it is also a sign of when intelligence going against you. It's the intellectual yet stupid, where common sense is forgotten against gut feeling. All right, Chris, what do you have to say about that?
Why do you sit there on the couch doom scrolling when there's work to be done? You have dreams, you have a business you want to build, you have an idea of a girl that you want to fuck in your mind. Why are you sitting on the couch scrolling? The reason why you're sitting on the couch scrolling, the reason why you're watching the next anime, is because you were raised by people who can't wipe their ass after taking a shit without asking the government's permission. That's why. Or you were surrounded by people who needed the permission of higher authorities, whether it be gods, whether it be governments, whether it be their wife. You were surrounded by people who have trained you and inoculated you into this system where your whole life is on rails, where you are put into the school system. And rather than running around in your natural environment like crazy higher ape that you are, instead, you sat there in school for 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. You sat there in these classes. You have to ask permission to take a piss. That's how most of you lived your lives for years, asking permission to take a piss like you're in prison. Of course, you're going to sit on the couch doom scrolling. Humans are habit-building creatures. They're creatures of internal fire. They come out the womb fucking blasting like a rocket ship. We're running around when we're little boys. We're running around in our schoolyards where we're trying to, we're running up at the girls, calling them stinky, calling them fat. We're running up to other boys. We're hitting them with sticks. And then society. It happens. We realize we're in a society. Our parents tell us not to do this. We speak loudly. Our parents tell us to speak quietly. We all have dreams. We want to be this. We want to be astronauts. We want to be paleontologists. We want to be this, that, or the other. Eventually, after a while, reality hits. But does it? Is it just that you have allowed reality to cuck you? That you've allowed the reality that you exist in to turn you into a lazy person with weak habits that have eventually turned you into a being that cannot operate on his own? Are there other ways of living? Are there other ways of doing things? Is it possible that there are other men out there who are going after what they want with all the ferocity that you can imagine for yourself in your wildest dreams, and more so. Is it possible that there's millions of other men out there who are running around attacking shit and pursuing shit? If there are, then maybe they're doing something different. Maybe they're thinking something different. What is their mindset? What is driving them? That's what this podcast between me and French is going to be about today.
Yeah, and I'll pick up on what you said about people lob optimizations of the mind. They start at school, continues at university, to be followed up by work. All right. What you'll find is that people will delegate their critical sense to third parties, and that means authority. People always talk about bias, right? And the bias that a lot of people have, especially if they think that they're actually a bit more intelligent than everyone else, is that we all run by biases. Therefore, we cannot trust our own self to make judgments. There is some truth to it. There are some bias that holds more truth than others. Granted. But what does that tell you? Does that tell you cannot make a proper decision based upon the prejudice and the bias you have? There's a reason why you have biases. It's like cliches. They exist for a reason. Those are mechanisms of survival, right? It may not hold truth a lot of time, and it may be misleading in others, but at the same time, it is those biases that make you go full on, right? You can be wrong after the action, but the way people are using biases is for you to stop doing the actions. What happens is that people will basically make a judgment upon a specific topic, whatever it is. What they'll do is they'll look at studies. And because they're good economic graduates that basically have been told to repeat whatever the fuck they've been taught, to always reference everything that they have been reading in their dissertation, they completely seclude themselves from doing their own thinking based upon the material at hand. They're just basically doing a patchwork of the different material and putting that into some type of, wheat cake that they end up eating. But at the end of the day, that's not thinking. That's just regurgitating. So those type of people, well, what they're going to do after is they'll start criticizing about people that have actually been on the field, right? Because they didn't have any of that extra information before they went on the field. They just did. Why? Because they wanted to get to a goal, right? Those people started to gather data. Yeah, it might be data that might be, biased to some extent. Yeah, it may not necessarily be randomly sampled. Yeah, the sample number may not be that high. However, they have field experience, empirical data, right? And that's hard data they got, right? Whereas with a lot of those studies, you'll find soft data. But because the methodology is good, people will basically start taking a stance on the soft data with the right methodology and make an opinion about something and then justify why they're not doing anything. But what does that tell you? That tells you that first, they are bitches, right? They are bitches and not ballers because they didn't put themselves out there. Second, they most likely actually have a lower intelligence because you can see a bell curve of intelligence. You have like the really low IQ intelligence that basically are too dumb to understand about the concept of data. And you have the high IQ one who understand the limitation of data. And then in the middle, you have all those university graduates that don't know any shit about data outside of what they've been told. Those people are the ones that are being the fodder for the companies and the corporates, making them think that they're actually smart enough to basically do some fucking mind-numbing tasks, but dumb enough to not realize that they're being conned by the same system that they cherish. So those are the people that you don't want to end up with. Because whenever you do something in your life, you have to see it with your own self, because with your own self, it's your own agenda working. It's not some third-party funded agenda by a study that will tell you something that they want to hear rather than you want to hear. And then basically turn you in the person that they want you to be turned into, so as to better manipulate you. Asserting yourself is about not only knowing yourself, but having the confidence of moving forward and discovering for yourself and exposing yourself to basically build your own viewpoint, but at the same time build your own ability to adapt. And third, having the confidence of going through and making the right choice based upon the feedback you received.
Yes. In order to, let me mention something let me respond to something that you've just said there, because it's a very deep concept, and a lot of guys won't get it, but it's something that is really essential to understand if you want to actually make things happen. When you want something done, you need to either get a lot smarter or a lot dumber. It's true. It's true.
No, I can already see where this is going. I can already tell where this is going.
The worst is when you're stuck in the fucking middle, right? Because the stupid guy, he doesn't know anything, but he doesn't overthink anything. He's just sort of wandering around like a child. He's just like, ooh, I want this. Ooh, I wonder how this works. Oh, that breaks. Oh, okay. I wonder how this works. That breaks. Oh, this works. Oh, okay. Ooh, right? The really, really smart fucking person, they've got a plan. They've got a strategy. They know everything about everything, right? So they don't necessarily need to sort of blunder their way into things. They don't need to sort of, they don't need to worry about being afraid of the unknown, because so little is unknown that the fear is not there. They've just essentially, they've got the IQ necessary, and they've put the work in necessary to basically analyze the complexities of a system to the point where they just know it. The people in the middle, however, are fucked, because they have enough intelligence and enough education to know that they're fucking out of their depth, right? They don't have the sort of the drive and the bullishness of the stupid guy, but they know a bit. But the bit that they know is not really enough to help them achieve the task. And once you know a little bit about something, you realize how fucking clueless you are, and how fucking, it's like you don't realize how high the summit on a mountain is until you've actually climbed like a third of the way up, and you're like, damn, we must be getting there soon. And your legs are aching, and you look up, and then all of a sudden, like, you get over the crest of a fucking, a crest of a cliff, and then you see you've got like fucking 2,000 more feet ahead of you to climb, right? It's the people in the middle are fucked. The people in the middle are fucked. So if you find yourself in a position, as a lot of you guys are, where you're trying to build a business, or you're trying to get loads of new women into your life, you're trying to wage like some kind of campaign, right? You're trying to go out, you're mustering your armies, right? You're like fucking Napoleon mustering your armies, and you've got a battle plan, right? Okay, we're going to go and get a bunch of bitches. Okay, we're going to go and get a bunch of resources. Okay, we're going to go screw over all my enemies. Okay, the worst thing that you can be is in the middle. The worst thing that you can be is just that guy who knows a bit. He has a bit of a plan, but the plan's not good enough to work, right? They say, most guys are not Jeff Bezos with his business plan. Their business plan is, I'll start a company, right, online, and I'll spend 3 days trying to work out what the logo is going to look like, right? It's like, I'm gonna make this company, and then you speak to them like 4 months later, and they're like, you're like, okay, so how's that company doing then? He's like, oh well, I'm just getting this sorted out, getting that sorted out, and you're like, like a dumb guy would literally just he'd be like, okay, I need a way where I can get paid, right? Boom, so I'm gonna set up fucking account, right? Boom, I need a product. Boom, I need a way to share that product with other people. Right? He thinks simply. And so in the space of fucking 3 or 4 days, he's already got his product. He's already got his payment method, and he's already got his fucking little social media to promote it. Right? He is a functioning business in 3 fucking days because he was dumb enough to not be distracted by all the meaningless bullshit that he can just fix later anyway. Right? So whereas the really, really smart guy, right, like he basically knows all of the shit, right? He's studied all of the shit. And so he can come up with some kind of big, like, Jeff Bezos business plan. But the point that I'm repeating here is don't be in the middle, okay? Work out where you are, okay? And if you're just starting out on an endeavor, or you've yet to start out on an endeavor, be dumber. Like, be simpler, be dumber. Just literally just get all of the... I guarantee you are procrastinating with meaningless bullshit, and you are doing a whole bunch of shit that you think is work, but actually isn't really moving the needle at all, right? So it's like some fantasy writer, right? and he's got a fucking notepad there in front of him, or he's got fucking Microsoft Word there in front of him, right? But he's sitting there like watching a fucking 6 hour long video on a fantasy game that he likes because he's like, oh, if I watch this, I'll get inspiration, you know, like I'll get inspiration, and that, but then like he gets the inspiration at the end of the video, he's like, oh, okay, actually start in the first chapter, you know, I'll do that tomorrow. Like, no, he's just wasted his time. He's just convinced himself that he was doing work, right, and actually just procrastinated. Okay,
Yeah.
if he was dumber, he'd just be like, he wouldn't be sitting there using his brain power to convince himself that this sort of video he's watching is somehow work. He'd actually be doing the work because the work would be all that he could imagine.
Exactly.
So when you're starting out, get dumber. Okay.
If you're not smarter.
Hmm?
If you're not smarter, get dumber.
To be honest, even if you are smarter, because like, because at the end of the day, like the first stages of doing something is always like pretty simple brute work, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
It's always some pretty simple shit, right? Like it's when you're actually like in the thick of doing something, when you've actually got money coming in from a business, right? Or you've fucked your first few girls or something. Like, I mean, you are starting to see actual returns on the work that you're doing, right?
Yeah.
The problem is with anything is that people quit or they don't start before they see any actual returns.
Yeah.
Right. And so the best form of motivation is how, like, work out this, like, in the simplest terms, what things you essentially need in order to start seeing returns, and then only do those things. That's it.
Yeah.
And then
Also,
everything else, save that until you've actually got into the routine and the habit of actually doing it.
yeah. And I'll continue, and I'll continue on the point that you're saying about the middle, the soft middle. Think of the middle as a limp dick. The middle is a limp dick. And why am I saying that? In general, what you tend to find in the middle is people that know a little bit about a subject, but will basically start to draw fucking theories about it all because they know the fucking foundation that they read on the fucking course for a module that they bought, or that was free. Really, when you understand about how things work, you have to think about beyond the data. You have to look at cross-disciplinary, right? It's like, oh, I've got the data about this subject matter, but because the data says that to me, then that's all I need to take care about. No, the soft data that is being taken, or even the hard data, has other variables coming into play that actually give that end result data. And when you understand that you cannot draw too many conclusions from the end result. All right. To go on to what Chris was saying, be too dumb to fucking quit. Because when it comes to bitches, or even when it comes to money, the feedback loop of actually getting a return from the action that you made, right? And keep on continuing doing those actions, even if you didn't get the return. Because what exactly is confidence and assertiveness and basically driving yourself forward to the world? Whether it's bitches, whether it's work, whether it's job, whether it's career, whether it's like enterprise, like your own enterprise, is that you know that you've got the right idea. You know that the money is over there, but you have to keep on digging, even if you've not actually seen any results. And the moment you get a few results, you get a few lays from girls, right? Or you get a few thousands of bucks from your first online sales. Then you're like, oh shit, I think I've cracked something, right? And then basically you start scratching over the surface and be like, well, what mistake have I made, or what type of bottlenecks did I find myself in, so that I can actually make it more efficient, increase the margins, right? That's really the thing about it, right? That creates also even more confidence because then you own more of the shit that you're doing, right? Going back onto girls, right? What is the we made two podcasts, right? On that subject. We've like, for example, how the fear of approach, how to beat approach anxiety. This is the same mindset, it's the same logic. You have to go in there, and then you collect reference points, you collect data, etc., right? And then afterwards, it's about knowing yourself. So the first part is basically shoot your shot. Maybe use some canned lines, maybe use some PUA techniques, right? Stuff that you read, for example, on the business front, on business website, you're trying to do for your own business, right? Etc. Right? And then you realize, well, this doesn't really vibe with me, or this doesn't really rhyme with me. But then you say, this is actually working, etc., right? And you build your little pyramid of the thing that worked, and basically got rid of the thing that didn't work, right? And in the pyramid, you start wide and you end up narrow. Well, the same process, right? When it comes to knowing yourself, and also it is like a fucking arrow when you think about it. Moving forward, arrow. And it is only normal that you're gonna have to shell off some shit along the way. And that's fine. You have to basically open yourself wide when it comes to thinking at the very beginning, how am I gonna move, right? Address, be dumb, as Chris says. And then look at the thing that worked and not work, and narrow it. Same thing with your personality. Same thing with your identity. Same thing with your authenticity. For you to be truly true to yourself, you need to expose yourself. By exposing yourself, you find that you actually get to learn more about yourself, what actually resonates with you and what doesn't. So whenever you assert yourself in the future, whether it's with bitches or whether it's with business, you have that confidence of, I'm not going to do that shit because the last time I did that shit, I got my ass burnt, right? And you're not going to double doubt. You're not going to doubt. You're not going to do all of that bullshit. Why? Because you got those reference points. An overthinker don't have those fucking reference points. That's why you basically just realize, you'll look at some studies, some data, some online, whatever. But that's soft. So the toughest mistakes, the toughest lessons you'll make will be from the mistake you've made, because it burned your ass, because you had skin in the game. If you don't have skin in the game, you're just an armchair commentator, right? And you don't want to be that, because not only people that are not armchair commentators will find you out, but even for yourself, you only. Yeah, go ahead.
They always reveal themselves in the end, those types of things.
Exactly. Always armchair commentators.
And there's no coming back from it when they do.
Exactly. You've burnt out your street cred, right? And I see a lot of that on Twitter. There's a lot of posturing, there's a lot of egos, there's a lot of like harvesting, just because it's popular to be on one side of the argument versus another. But at the end of the day, it's like there's also a lot of ego protection. And what does it do? Most of the time, it's just to make you feel good about yourself. But really, it's about, once you're actually willing to break that ego by actually going into things that you may not necessarily vibe with, but you just think for the end result, for the end product, it's worth trying. And let's say you try, you say, all right, cool, that works. But does that resonate with me? Meh, maybe not. Even though it worked, right? And then you realize that there's different ways to skin a cat. And you're like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to get less of that result, but it resonates more with me than if you do the other way. But then some other people will be like, no, that other way resonates more with me. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. But for you to know that, you need to expose yourself to both. Having that open-mindedness. Yeah, Chris? Oh, seems like Chris has left
a second formula.
All right, no worries. Seems like an Amazon delivery guy basically decided to stop us in our run. But what also another thing which is very important, right? And I'll tell you that from being a former game guy. It's about understanding what is important for you, right? If you always look at the results, you'll make your happiness, you'll make your contentment contingent on the result. You'll make your ego and you'll make your own self-worth based upon the result that you get. But really, it's not about the result that you get. Yeah, the result you'll get, fine, give you that confidence, etc., etc. But it's about, am I okay not getting the result as much as I used to if I'm feeling more confident in the way I act? All right, what does that mean? Think about it this way. Abundance. What is abundance? Guys will tell you abundance is having all of those options to buy. Say, for example, you have money. You have money abundance. So you have money abundance. You can buy every shit that is around. That's great, yeah. But really, that abundance is only a contingent upon all those available things. Having money is actually having the ability to say no to bullshit, because any negatively skewed situation has more of an impact than a positively skewed situation. Therefore, you stopping yourself from getting exposed to that bullshit, that's what money is. That's what is real abundance. Abundance is not, for example, how many girls you can sleep with. It's how content are you in yourself, in who you are, irrespective of the number of options that you have. That is next level. But a lot of people are still stuck on optionality of girls. And then when they don't have as many options of girls, what happens? They go for a fucking slum buster. How's that for your self-esteem? But anyway, Chris, do you want to go back onto one of the things that we were talking about?
Yeah, I will. I don't know whether I'll have to edit that bit out or not. I was
No, it's fine. It's cool.
Someone who's doing some work on my flat was shouting at me. I should have told them I was fucking occupied. Anyway, when you first start out on any endeavor, you are going to, unless you're really, really stupid, unless you're blessed with ignorance, you're going to feel completely over your head. Because you're going to need a certain amount of knowledge about something to feel good enough to progress, to feel like you know enough to progress and to make the moves. But the problem is that getting good at anything, getting a really high level of success at any endeavor is going to involve lots of complexities and lots of subtleties that cannot be learned quickly. And so you will going to have to get used to. This is something I say to the people that I coach all the time. You're going to have to get used to feeling like there's stuff that you don't know that you need to know. You're going to have to get used to coming across people that are in a sort of higher position than you or better at it than you. And rather than running away from them and turning your head away, but actually like accepting like, damn, this guy's further along than me. I need to learn from him, right? Put the fucking personal feelings aside. You need to be okay with not knowing everything right now and trust and have faith in the fact that you will in the future. Now, I've extolled the virtues of ignorance. So where does smartness come in? How do we use that big front brain of ours, that big mammalian male human front brain? Because women have small front brains, like monkeys. Okay, how are we going to make use of it? What separates like the smart people from everyone else? Because we all want to learn how to be as smart as possible. The smart people are people who can refine and optimize systems. There are plenty of people out there who are pretty stupid who own businesses that they run, right? The guy who runs your local gym, the old Chinese lady who you buy sweet and sour chicken from, right? At the takeaway, right? Like there's lots of people, right? They are very hard-working people. They work very, very hard. The guy who owns his own little construction company, you see those big guys in the gym and they're all talking about, their work on the building site that day, right? What is the difference between a very hard-working dumb person and the kind of thing that only a very smart mind can unlock? I remember a guy stood in the gym, and I wasn't trying to listen in on his conversation, but it was, I was there on the on fucking lat pull downs, I think, and he was on the machines next, right? And he was talking to his mate, and he was talking about how some strategy he had to get more work for his, I think it was a roofing business, right? And he thought he was being very, very smart because he was talking about, oh yeah, if we do this and we do this, we can get more jobs a month, right? And then we'll make more money, right? Very clever. The only problem is, though, is that now he's got to put more fucking work in. So he hasn't really, it's not really been a smart thing, right? Like dumb people, they're very, very good at getting started. They're very, very good at putting the work in. They're very, very good at not overthinking things and actually setting up things that they need. The problem is, though, is that all they can do after that, if they want to get more results, is just do more hard work. The reason why Jeff Bezos can make $50 million a day, right? The reason why Elon Musk can run multiple large corporations, right, is not because they necessarily work very hard, although they do. There is not enough hours in the fucking day to to run all the shit that they're running, right? Like he would need, like Elon Musk would need to live in a parallel dimension where he had like 50,000 hours in a day and never got tired, and everyone else was just running on normal speed, right? The reason why they can do what they do is because every time they have reached a point where they have gained a certain level of success, they immediately then think, okay, what were the steps that I took to reach this level of success, right? And how do I refine and optimize that process so that given X amount of work, I can get even more results, right? So this involves like delegating, so like hiring people to do work for you, therefore giving you more time to invest in other things, right? Or coming up with like ways of working smarter so that you can get the same result with less effort. Now, this is the principle of leverage, right? Smart people are good at building leverage. They are good at taking a small business and then employing more people, right? And then building it up and then refining it and then employing more people and then building it up and then coming up with the latest methods and then buying the latest tools until eventually they have more money than they know what to do with. Stupid people, they know how to get started. They know how to get working. They know how to get working, and then their lifestyle increases a little bit, right, as their money starts to come in, as it does with everybody. But the problem is that eventually they run out of hours in the day and they're just working around the fucking clock so that they can buy, the lower end sort of like, I don't know, like a BMW or something. But there's some other guy with 100 fucking supercars, right? And the reason why is because he was smart enough to recognize that he only had a certain amount of hours in the day. He put all of the things in place that needed to be in place to bring him results. And then what he started to do was to build leverage and to start building refining systems, employing new people. Now, this is all very well and good for business, and people kind of know this with business, right? If you study business at all, everyone knows this, but you can kind of do it with other things. You can kind of do it with other things as well, right? Like, for example, if you work on cold approach, if you work on like just walking up to girls in the mall and just trying to get their number, like, yes, you will get better at the approach. You'll get better at like your little pitch. You'll get better at sort of turning the pitch into a natural conversation. You'll get better at sort of number closing, and so with a decent amount of practice, you'll end up increasing the percentage of the approaches. As you become more comfortable with approaching, you'll end up having a higher number of approaches, right? Because when you first go out, I mean, just approaching 2 or 3 girls is a pretty fucking mentally stressful experience. When you're used to it, I mean, there's some guys who can approach like 40 girls in a day if they go to their local shopping mall, right? So yeah, you'll increase the number and you'll increase the percentage, but at the end of the day, there's only so many girls that you can approach within a certain period of time during a busy season at a shopping mall, right? And the percentage of girls that are going to give you their number is not going to be huge, and you're never going to get it to 100, And so there's the limitation on cold approach, right? There's a limiting factor there. Now, if you want to talk about dating apps and Instagram and things like this, right? And so if you are a social media star and your social media stardom is roughly connected to something sexual, or at the very least, it's cool. You're an influencer. Maybe you're a lead singer in a band. Maybe you are a porn star. Maybe you're some kind of like BDSM educator like me, right? You will literally have people message you, right? Like you can literally have like a system where thousands of people know who you are. And if that thing is related to money or related to sex, people, because of this system that you've built up, people will literally approach you to give you those things. right? But whereas the guy who's cold approaching women in the mall, right? I mean, he could cold approach for 10 years and he might get a lot of success. But after the fifth year, the sixth year, the seventh year, he still has to put in the same amount of effort to get the same results as he did in year one. Maybe he gets like slightly more results. But the difference is that the guy who's like, he sets up like a sort of a social media presence, and he sets up like dating apps, and he sets up Instagram, right? And eventually he's going to get really, really great pictures. He's going to get lots and lots of social proof. He's going to get lots and lots of followers. He's going to get lots of pictures and videos of him with girls doing really cool things. And then after a while, he now has a system in place where he barely has to do any work. He can just post once every now and again on Instagram, post to his story, right? And if he's reached a certain level, he will now have most of the work done for him. He will have girls messaging him to set up dates and to give him his number. Whereas the guy in the mall is approaching like, has to approach like 4 or 5 girls to get that same result. So like when you, I think something that I'm not the first person to come up with this idea, but I think I took it to a higher degree, is to recognize that there are certain girls who will actively bring you other girls, right? Either because they are submissives and it's part of their submission and they want to bring you pleasure, because they have a fetish for it, they are cuck queens, the female version of a cockhole, or because they are bisexual and they are attracted to the girls themselves, right? So if you target girls that belong in those 3 categories or a combination of those 3, then you will be able to have a girl who then goes and reaches out to other girls for you, right? So now the amount of, you essentially have an employee in the same sense that a business has. You see what I'm talking about, right? Like the dumb guy gets off his ass and does things quickly, but the dumb guy doesn't think about these sorts of things. The dumb guy is the guy in the bar approaching women over and over again. And in 20 years' time, yeah, he'll have slept with a bunch of women, but the amount of fucking work he will have had to do to sleep with his body count of 80 or whatever. But a really, really smart guy who gets with a girl who's submissive and bisexual and then just has her swipe on fucking Tinder, he might have in the same amount of time, he might have had like fucking 80 odd threesomes, right? And not even put any fucking work in because his girl's doing all the fucking work, right? That's the difference between a dumb person and a smart person, right? The smart people find ways. Once they've set their shit up, the smart people can find ways of getting the same level of results and even more results with less effort. That's the difference.
So much to talk about on this one, right? So basically what we're talking about here is scalability.
Yeah.
In the sense that for for 1 hour worth of time, can you basically increase the amount of revenue you have for that 1 hour? All right. So for example, to talk about the roofer, right? Yeah, you get more work. But even if you get more work, you need to employ more people, right? So yeah, you get more revenue, but holding everything else equal, you may even have actually higher charge or higher cost with the new employees, right? So it's because it's a blue collar type of job, the margins are not necessarily as high as if it's, let's say, a white collar like software type of shit, right? That's the first thing. Same thing with businesses, right? You have people that are very good at running a company as an SMB, as a small and medium enterprise company, right? But then you're looking at the mid-cap market, you're looking at the enterprise market. This is a whole different type of level and a whole different ball game when it comes to leadership in those companies. So that's why you have private equities basically like, you know what, you're doing very well as a founder, but you don't have what it takes to basically get us to like that multi-billion-dollar revenue company. And that's why we're gonna hire this CEO, because that's what he's basically specialized in. Same, going back to even someone that can not necessarily have that smartness, that's the limitation, but still you'll get a nice paycheck. Also, another thing which is very important that I'd like to actually discuss, and which is, it's also a market strategy, right? What are you gonna work on? Are you going to focus on the niche market, or are you going to focus on the mass market, right? When you focus on the mass market, you're looking at basically diluting the product so that it appeals to the lowest common denominator, right? But when you're looking at a niche market, you're looking at a highly segmentized approach at the expense of everything else, but you got to be one of the best, if not the best, in your field to make the biggest fucking revenue. Same thing with bitches. All right. So, and when it comes to game, think about it this way, right? When you learn game, you're a PUA, you do all the approach, you do all of that shit, right? And you're like, oh, all I care is my numbers. Lay 1, lay 2, lay 3. Yes, girl, maybe girls. Yeah, great. Great. Happy days. Your whole identity is being validated by you getting bitches, right? But technically, you're making your ego, your sense of worth to a third party. Great. What does that make you? That makes you a bitch. Why? Because basically bitches can only derive value from outside sources. You as a guy need to derive value from your own sources, right? How do you do that? Is by basically understanding not only what part of game that you'll keep for you, right? We're talking about the pyramid just before, so that it actually be part of who you are, but also understanding what type of interaction you like. Some guys like to basically deal with maybe girls because they like to feel that they have to work hard for a bitch, right? Some guys just be like, hey, you know what? I just rather have the easy peasy life and basically being able to get away with murder because a girl likes me, right? That's more like me. I'm a lazy cunt, but hey, it is what it is, right? But more importantly, it's not about one thing is better than the other. I think it's a dumb argument. It's about what works the best for you, right? If you basically want to appeal to the mass market when it comes to bitches, yeah, it will be at the cost of your identity, in the sense that it will be for you to dilute yourself so much so that you appeal to the most bitches, right? But when you want to have like a very true and deep connection, it'll be having that segmentation, that niche market, right? So going back to what you were saying about the scale, about being scalable, right? Personally, I mean, I like online, but just for content and just for a good laugh, right? So that I can make the whole room joke, right? I mean, we already talked about my adventures on Bumble and Hinge, but really, it is that's the way it is. And I'll give you an anecdote, right? I went earlier this year to a seminar made by one of my mentors. Well, he was not my direct mentor, but he was a big influence on me during my PUA days, which was Todd Valentine of the RSD people.
I love
And
Todd.
yeah, you have to.
When I was a beginner, I binge watched his videos. He was the
Oh
man.
man, he was like, if we have any autistic tendencies, that's great because basically he breaks shit down to the nitty gritty shit.
Yes.
Also, being an ex poker player, he was as well. That he spoke to me like, like it just was like that, right? And what was really interesting is that even old school PUAs like him understood that basically online and social media above all, is going to be the name of the game. Business cannot function without social media. Dating now cannot function without social media. When you're a guy and you basically, how many times do you have a girl say, oh, give me your IG? Basically, that is your business card. Once you understand that, not only basically once you draw a following, once you draw like a lot of audience, not only do you have a mass market where where you're being able to, but you can actually do both. You can both looking at from many different girls if you want volume, or you can segment to a very specific niche, like for example BDSM niche, like you want, right? That gives
Yeah,
you
I
that.
mean, I'm a good example of a guy who's niched down very, very hard and got a lot of success out of it. Yeah.
Exactly. So once you understand that, it's like, for me personally, I don't, and that's why, for example, my niche, for me, I'm very much of a narrative driven guy. I love a good story. I like to tell myself a good story. I like to look back at something that I'd be like, oh, that's great. I just didn't take the number and basically went on some random day and fuck the bitch. Because to me, it's almost like you go and watch a fucking porn video. It's like brothers videos. Like, it's like there's no setup, there's no premise, there's no build up. It's like clapping them cheeks and all right, fine, she's got a BBL, fine, she's got some fake boobs, yeah, she's got all of her makeup and shit. But to me, it does nothing. Why? Because I developed a taste for a certain type of unraveling, right? Some guys, for example, they love about having to play all the trickeries of games and everything. But don't be, and that's where the dumb people are. All right. And that's why I say to people, if you focus too much on trickeries and on just taking action, but not understanding what are the repercussions of those actions, not understanding the high level shit, meaning by that where it's coming from. Oh, I want to do this, I want to say this line, I want to do this trick, I'm not going to answer before the next day, oh, I'm going to do this. And then basically what the girl will do, she'll throw a curveball, but because he just did that mindlessly because someone else told him, he will fuck up the shit test because it was just a plaster when literally he cut his artery, but he didn't know how to put a bandage on. He just put a plaster, and then basically when the blood comes out because the girl gave him a shit test, he doesn't know what to do. It is the same thing with businesses. It's like you need to understand that it's good to start and be dumb and take actions and play all those little trickeries and everything. But if you don't build that mental resilience from the mistake you make, or also build that overall understanding of the logic behind what the fuck you do, then you're going to be stuck at base 1, right? Then you got base 2, which is, all right, I understand the logic behind the actions that I make. All right, fine. Base 3 is, what do I want to choose based upon base 1 and base 2? All right, fine. I'll basically do the things that resonate the most with me. And base 4 is what I'm seeking and what I'm driving forward, understanding base 3, 2, and 1. And it's all going back to the pyramid. You have to understand what you stand for. You have to understand what goes along with what you stand for. You have to understand the logic behind what you stand for, and you have to understand why you're not doing all the other things that other people may be doing, and be fine with it.
Yeah. Ultimately, there comes a point, and I think this happens when you hit 30, where you start to really sit there and think about what you actually want. Like, what is, to you, in a certain realm of your life, winning the game? What will you be satisfied with? Like, if imagine a lifestyle, sexual, financial, whatever, like your fitness, like might be a certain level of physical capability, or maybe a certain level of, maybe you want to be sort of a guy who never wants to have to worry about people fucking with you. There's a certain level of sort of scariness that you want to reach to the point where you no longer have to sort of worry about anything. Really sit down and think, if you reached a certain lifestyle and then died, and like you were sitting there on your deathbed and you looked back on the life that you'd led for the few years leading up to that, would you wish you could have had more, or would you be content? I feel like a lot of guys, like, it depends. I mean, there are some of us, like, I genuinely believe that Elon Musk, if he didn't run multiple billion-dollar companies, would be profoundly miserable. He would be genuinely profoundly miserable. He has to. It is in his fucking DNA, his destiny, to do that. If you read the early works of Napoleon, when he was in military school, he was very depressed. He was always known as, he was a very sort of manic depressive type character, and he would write things like, "If I don't get a promotion soon, I'm going to throw myself in the river," and he meant it, right? There was a real, like, he could not fucking stand not being the legend. He had to be the greatest fucking military guy that the world had ever seen, or he was nothing. Okay, so the level of success that ultimately you will be content with, and the level of success that you will ultimately really put 100% of your effort into achieving, will be determined by ultimately what you're content with. It really will be, So, what is all of you guys sitting at home? I really want you to do this, because it's one of the most beneficial things that you can do in your life, and it will be a way in which you can understand yourself. Really sit down and write down, like, I mean, most of you guys who are coming onto this podcast to learn about getting girls, right? So some of you guys more sort of financial, but that's what we're known for. So let's bring that example up. Would you be happy, for example, if you had 3 or 4 numbers in your phone that you could ring up at any given moment, and at least one of them would probably have sex with you, right? They're all reasonably attractive girls. You know what the PUAs declare as a rotation, right? Like, if for the rest of your life you never really had to worry about going without sex, and you knew that the girls who were in your life that you were having sex with were reasonably attractive, right? For most guys, that will be winning the game. That will be beating the game, basically. And if you do want to get like married and have children, or if you just want to have children, then you will have a few options there, and at least one of them will be a reasonably good option because you will have a few numbers. You have a little bit of abundance, right? For most guys, that's, I suppose, the financial equivalent of that would be having a few million in the bank, right? It would be sort of like, you're not like this in the super elite levels. You're not shaking the world. You're not moving. You're not going to make a mark on the planet. But at the same time, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. You're not going to have to worry. You're never going to have to be. You're not going to be broke anytime soon. You can sort of, you've built the bulk of your success, and you can just kind of chill and put your feet up if you want it. But there are always going to be some guys as well, and I am one of these guys who, you know, who are just either unbelievably greedy, or they're just fucking turbo degenerates, right? Who have, and I consider myself to be to be both. Mainly the second, right? I'm getting, as far as I'm new to the whole financial game recently, but like,
Mhm.
there are some guys who simply just won't be satisfied unless they have, a harem of girls who call them master, and they have to have certain body type, and they, there are some guys who won't be satisfied unless they are drinking champagne at the most expensive tables in the most expensive clubs in Dubai. The only way you really know which one you are is by achieving a certain modicum of success, right? You can sit there when you're broke and say, "Oh, Dubai, that place looks shit," like, "Oh, drinking champagne, oh, that's fucking horrible." But you're broke, so how do you know that that's really what you don't like? I mean, you don't have the money to experience it. Maybe if you did, you would actually fucking love it, right?
No,
It
exactly.
has,
That's exactly it. It's
yeah,
exactly it.
yeah. It's like there's loads of guys who are like, oh well, having a girl call me sir, and like, giving me massage when I come home, and like, calling me master, and doing all, fucking brainwashing techniques, and writing out lines and punishments and all this. Like, I just want a nice girl who loves me and, doesn't nag me or whatever. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. Or maybe, actually, if you knew how to fucking do that, you'd actually found that you really fucking enjoyed it. You know, like,
But the, the,
I'm not
but the
necessarily
question,
saying every guy wants that, but the thing is
yeah,
that the key is true freedom and true power comes from, and true authenticity is having the ability to have something and then choosing not to have it because it's not your thing.
exactly. And but actually, it's another thing. Actually, I want to ask you this question before I go on. Right? I If a person, for example, right, if a person, like it sounds all good, and like that vision of the BDSM where she's literally like all of this, right? Like, I'm not really into it. I mean, I don't mind. Well, not because, I mean, I've not been in that sphere, right? But it's more from a
Hmm.
perspective. I'm like, can I be bothered to do the work in order to get there? Being by that, is a reward worth enough for me to do the investment? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe a lot of guys may be thinking like that. I mean, I don't take my case for a generality, right? Because it doesn't happen overnight, this stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's. Would you say that it's a cope, or is it actually makes sense?
No, I would say that it makes sense. It makes sense for you
Yeah.
because you are a man who has access to multiple women, right? And you're a man who has access to me, right? If you wanted to become a BDSM master within a year, we'd have you there. But you haven't
All
asked,
right.
and you haven't
No.
inquired. And if you were really burning secretly to do that, you could have done that, mate. You know what I mean? But that's the thing. That's
But
why I don't choose.
I remember I was curious a bit because it's kind of like a world that I don't really know. So I wanted to kind of like just get. I think you gave
Yeah.
me you gave me your book, just just. But going back to what you're saying, and it's something that a lot of people that are still stuck in the PUA phase don't get. Right? It's they're still stuck onto the fact that they want to basically bang as many bitches as ever, right? But if you bang as many bitches as well, like basically, if you cannot choose what you prefer, do you do that out of abundance or out of scarcity? Because going back to what I was saying earlier, you can't be liked by everyone, and not everyone gonna like you. But if you make yourself liked by everyone, it's because you lack identity. It's always it's a zero sum game on this, where in order to be liked by everyone, you have to dilute your personality. But why do you dilute your personality? You dilute your personality because you're reliant upon the number of girls that you get rather than actually the girl validating who you are. Because if you're being validated by the amount of girls that you've been with, what does that tell about you? You don't know who the fuck you are. All right, that works fine, right? But what's happening with a lot of PUAs is that after they fuck, right, the girl can see that it's just a smoke screen. There's nothing. There's no fucking backbone, right? And that's where a lot of guys get it wrong, right? But going back onto what you were saying earlier, right, which is it's about having that ability to say no to the thing that you don't want, but only from the perspective that you already had that. So in order to better know what you don't want, and I'll give you an example, right? I hear a lot of guys, and for me, I think some of it is true, a bit like what you're saying. Some of it is true, but some of it is not really true, but it's cool. It's like guys be like, yeah, I much prefer natural girls, right? But at the end of the day, which girl do you see on fucking table service in the high-end clubs? All made up, slagged up bitches. That's what you
Yeah.
see. Why? Because basically the guy whose money can afford that. And a lot of guys that don't have the masculinity enough in order to basically cater to those bitches, what happened is that they'll just basically say, no, it's not for me. But have you ever been with one? And I remember I brought some Essex bitch once at a work event, right? And all those French guys, because I was working with a lot of French people, they were, oh, no, I'm not like that. She's a hoe. She's just like that. I brought that bitch to the fucking workplace. They were like, whoo, 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 whoo. See what I'm saying? It's like you say you don't like a natural girl based on the fact that you can't get you like natural girls because it's only from the fact that you only like those. I mean, that's the only one that likes you. I mean, that's the only one that likes you, right?
Yeah, the only ones you can get. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And a lot of time, and I understand when PUA say, if you only go for yes girls, or if you can, it's because you cannot get maybe girls. No, it's just basically, for example, if you've been with maybe girls and you see be with yes girls, why would you be with maybe girls when you get better treatment from yes girls? Oh, because then I have to basically be on game 24/7, and I can validate myself how good am I a pet of game rather than game being the pet of me. You know what I'm saying? It's like to me, it doesn't really make sense. But that's where they're still stuck. And it's hard for people to kind of understand that when it's about, remember what I was saying to the pyramid? First, the first baseline is what you have to basically go through in order to get to get some result. Then you understand, you adapt, second baseline, right? Then you drive forward, third baseline, based upon what you basically got rid of and you kept. And then afterwards, you basically understand, okay, well, base 4 is what I like and what I don't like. And you basically get rid of the things. For example, for me, it's going to, yes, girls, yes, maybe girls, no, right? And once you get through those 4 stages, whether it's in business or whether it's with girls, that's where you have that true confidence upon who you are, what you're aiming for, and being comfortable with it. And for that, you first need to be dumb to start with, but be smart when it comes to filtering out.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, right? There's four main spheres of life that I can think of, right? I mean, I like to think of, I mean, I'm a nerd, right? People like to when people read my X account, right? People often they think that I'm some kind of like alpha male, like I'm not. I'm absolutely not. I'm just a nerd who figured out loads of cool shit related to masculine pastimes, right? And I used to play open world RPG video games, right?
Such as?
I love the ones like Fallout, like Skyrim, right? You build your character
Mhm.
and you've got a bunch of stats and you've got a bunch of perks and traits and stuff, and you go out into the world and you can go and you can do whatever quests you want, and like you level up certain things, you level up certain things, right?
Mhm.
And eventually you end up with like a fucking powerful character who can do crazy shit, who can go on crazy fucking quests, and you can wander around the world and there's nothing really in the world that will really fuck you up, right? Like I remember, I would start like a playthrough of like Fallout with survival mode on, right, and with a bunch of mods to make it more difficult. And for the first few hours, I'd be running around like even basic enemies would be terrifying. After 20 hours, I'd be fucking blasting death claws apart like easily, right? The real world is literally like that. It's literally like that. It's just a hell of a lot more complex because the laws of physics are a little bit more a little bit deeper and a little bit more complicated than the coding used to make most open world games. There are only really 4 spheres, right? So if we think about it, like if we thought experiment, if we just treat this great big open world that we live in, what skills do our characters have? Like, what are all the different skills that we can learn that are relevant, right? And here's the thing: we only get one playthrough. We got permadeath activated, right? And we've only got a certain amount of fucking time. And after a certain amount of time, our physical attributes fucking go really low, right? So in that space of time, we've got to get all of our skills up so fucking high that we can basically complete most of the side quests and complete the main quest, right? So that by the time all our physical attributes fucking go to 0, we get loads of debuffs, right? We'll be all right. So what are the main quests? What are the main quests, right? The quests are sexual, right? Can't be a fucking incel, right? As much as it might be nice to imagine, I mean, yeah, okay, there have been some very, very important people in history who've gone by without getting laid much, but you don't really want to be there. What'd you say?
Schopenhauer.
Yeah, fucking Isaac Newton and that. But at the end of the day, yeah, look, at the end of the day, like, I mean, you're going to want sexual partners in your life and you're going to want children, right? And, like, you need, if you don't have that side completed, you're basically either going to be ruled over by the pussy, right? And you're going to be spending your whole life doing everything you can just to get girls to like you. Or you're just going to be some kind of weirdo detached from society, just like sitting over there staring off into space, right? You're going to be some incel. So you need to get your sex related skills up to the point where you have an abundance of sexual partners, where you're never going lonely, and at least some of those sexual partners are reasonably attractive based on what you find attractive, and they are also not horrible to be around, and hopefully at least 1 or 2 of them are compatible enough so that you can have kids with them and not have to worry too much, right? So that I would say that's the bare minimum for success in the sexual realm. If you haven't achieved that by the time you've died, you've pretty much fucked, right? That's a game over, right? When it comes to money as well, you need enough money so that you can live independently. You need enough money so that you're not just locked in one place, right? You need enough money so that you can either drive a decent car or get taxis to where you need to go when you need to be there, right? Maybe get planes to various places, see the world. You need money for yourself, and you will also need money to do cool shit, right? Like, again, this depends on you as a person, how much money you're going to need, but there's a certain amount of money that you're actually going to have to start bringing in order to live your life. And if you don't reach that amount, like if you're not bringing in that amount per month, then you're living your life in a sort of state where you'd like to do this thing that day, but you don't have enough money. I'd love to, my mate's just rang me up, he wants to go clubbing. I don't have enough money. Shit, I'll have to go, next week. This girl's messaging me. It's 3 a.m. She's horny. She's just sent me a video message of her playing with her tits. I'm alone. Boyfriend's out. Come fuck me. Oh shit, you haven't got any money for a taxi. You haven't got any money for a car. Oh, I guess you're not fucking her then, right? There's a certain amount of logistical. There are logistical problems in you doing shit in your life that are going to be overcome with money. So you need a decent source of money. And if you want to have kids later on in life, you need money to support them. There are going to be emergencies that come along that you're going to drain your funds. These sorts of things. Another realm is the third of the 4 realms is your security, your safety. Right? It's like your ability to keep yourself safe. And this is the least important one if you get lucky, and it's the most important one if you get unlucky, right? Because if you die, the game is over. Doesn't matter how well you're doing. You could be on your way to becoming the greatest fucking game guy ever, right? But if you just straight up die, all them girls are going to go unfucked, right? You could be on your way to becoming the next Elon Musk, but if you die, then all that fucking company is going to end up making other people money or falling apart without
Game over.
Exactly. Fucking Dark Souls, fucking blood red, game over, right? That's you. That's the story of you. So you want a decent amount of security in your life. You want to keep your character safe. Because remember, we're playing with permadeath enabled here. We don't get no fucking respawns. You know? So if our character dies, we're fucked, right? And there's a whole bunch of shit that could kill your character. There's illnesses, there's these fucking debuffs, you know, like poison and toxic and curse and shit, you know, fucking cancer and shit, you know, right? So you got to have a reasonable amount of health, right? You got to have a reasonable amount of physical fitness, you know. You got to, like, there are some people who, if you're weak and vulnerable, they might try and fuck with you physically and they might beat you up. And then, hey, if you get, you know, I've been in quite a few fights in my life and I've lost some and I've won some, but fortunately I've never fallen on concrete and hit my head the wrong way and just got a brain hemorrhage and died. But it might have happened. It might have done, right? That's the point. That could happen to any one of you. So, you know, being a little bit good at fighting, or at least being scary enough to stop people from trying on you as much as they might, that's going to help. Maybe having some boys who can come and protect you if some people are out to get you, you know? Like, again, like, so there's the security side. Right? You got to protect your character so that you can actually fucking play the game long enough to actually get any kind of gains in. Then there's the fourth and final sphere. There's the fourth and final side, right? And that are the skills related to being famous, right? Having clout, right? Being able to make yourself known in the world, right? Because, like, if you, there are loads of people who are really fucking good at shit who are not known. They don't know how to make themselves known. And I'm not necessarily saying everyone has to be famous, but being famous allows you to, like, whatever it is that you're good at, if you're famous while doing it, it's probably going to be a lot better life. That's just a given, you know. So if you have the capacity to promote yourself and to make thousands, millions of people aware that you exist, that is a kind of victory condition as well. That is like a kind of one of the late game quests. I can say, you know, if you die and you're not known by a million people, you know, I mean, you can still have had a good life, but at the end of the day, you know, you probably got a lower high score than some other people at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So those are the four main things, and ideally, if we're not fucking retards, which most people are, but we're not, we want to accomplish at least most of the side quests in all of these four fucking things, right? And I know I've been going on, man. I'll let you speak in a second. But
Oh no, I've been enjoying hearing you, man. I've been enjoying hearing you, man.
You see, this is an analogy that it needs to be spoken about in one coherent fucking rant. Like, there are these four spheres, right? And most people are only really thinking about one sphere at a time. And here's the thing. Realistically, you're not going to be able to pursue all of them at once. You only have a certain number of hours in a day. There's going to be one which is priority to you at any given moment. But the best thing to do is if you understand that there are these four spheres, and if you focus on them and getting better at them, like, you're probably going to, by the time you get a game over, you're probably going to get a very fucking high score. You're probably going to get a very fucking high score. Most of the people, when they fucking die, right, they'll have basically completed, like, the tutorial quest for each of those areas. You know, like that's it. You know, there are some people on the planet who have basically completed, like, most of the side quests at their chosen field and other fields, and now they're basically just kind of chilling, doing whatever the fuck they want. You know, it's like It's like, do you remember we all played GTA when we were a kid, right?
Yeah, get the 7 stars.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know when like you've run out of quests to do and you start just doing like shit just for the enjoyment of it? Like you spawn in a tank and just start killing like thousands of policemen, or you spend like 3 hours just obeying traffic laws, just driving around like a normal citizen because it's just fun. Because you spent the whole game just doing whatever, right? Like life is like that, except there's a whole lot more of shit you need to accomplish before you can start doing things like that, right? But here's the thing, right? Why am I talking about all this shit, right? I mean, why am I talking? Because realistically, you're not going to be an authentic version of you unless you've completed at least the first few fucking side quests at each of these things. You're not going to be. If you completely lack in one of these areas or two of those areas, and most people do, most people do. There are very, very few men on earth who compete in all of these areas. I mean, even like I brought up Elon Musk a bunch of times as being a winner, and Elon Musk is the definition of a winner. He's one of the most important and successful people on the planet right now. He's certainly made more of a mark than most people ever will by an infinite scale. But the guy can't. He's got no fitness. He barely goes to the gym. He doesn't really do any kind of physical training. He's never known what it's like to be in a really, really great physical shape. To be really, that's something he's lacking on. That the waiter down at your local restaurant might experience. But if you, the goal, I would say, I mean, if you're listening to us, I would say that the goal, I mean, for us and probably most likely for you as well, is to accomplish a reasonable number of success in all of these fields. To complete a bunch of side quests and to gain a bunch of skills. Because then once you don't lack, if you don't lack for protection, if you can look after yourself, then you're not dependent on other people for that. Not that much. If you don't lack for money, right, you can kind of do what you want and you're not just constantly in a rat race of chasing after it. You're not just a slave to the dollar. If you're not lonely and you're not an incel and you can get women and seduce them and bring them into your life, then you're not just a slave for the pussy, constantly lonely and horny, in a really bad way. If you have the skills and the tools to sort of build up a following, whether that be a big following of ordinary people or a following in your chosen field, right? Then if you have all those bases covered, I mean, you can build your own authentic character because who do you need to rely on but yourself? You've got
Exactly.
all the fucking skills to play the game yourself.
Because you can build, hold on, you
Yeah,
can build your character from the ground up. It's harder because you're gonna pay the price of not having the options if you have money and all those 4 buckets, right? But at the same time, it'll make your ascension much more purpose driven. Because if you're always looking at getting that goal in order to be yourself, then like, who are you in the midway? Or are you midstream? Interestingly enough, so you mentioned the 4 buckets. So we've got social, we've got money, we've got bitches, we've got security, right? Actually, and I don't know if that's we can call it a nuance, or we can say, how about you actually use that as an RPG, right? The RPG where basically whenever you get X points by each mission that you complete, irrespective of the segment, you decide to put an extra bar, let's say on money, or let's say on bitches, or let's say on security, or let's say on social. At the end of the day, they're all interlinked. More social gives you more leverage gives you more money, then more money gives you more bitches, right? Or it could be social can get you more bitches, then basically get you more money because you can leverage the fact that you know how to get from social to bitches and money, right? Or like you'd be like, okay, well, if I get a lot of bitches and it can get me into more social get me the network to get money. It's all interlinked. So it's also about you and understanding about where you find the most resonance, right? Why does it always have to be what X, Y, Z? Why are you gonna choose? Like when you play an RPG and you have like that persona, like that character that you built, like not everyone will basically choose where to put their XP points at each and every intervals. So some people will be more social, some people will be more money, some people will be more bitches. Like some guys, they want to have money, but they don't want to be on socials because they may think that they may be a target and they don't want to have the attention on them. And some people may just be like, you know what, as you said, like I'm happy with 1 or 2 million. That's cool. I don't need to be Elon Musk. So it's also about you understanding where are your priorities and where do you rank each one of those buckets for you to feel comfortable and happy that by the time that you reach your final role, you look back into who you were and be like, okay, well, I'm actually quite satisfied that the score that I did one before I came to my grave was this. Because at the end of the day, you as a guy, right? And I think that's going to be the closing thoughts here. Really, you have no one else other than you to basically rely upon. Most of the time, girls will be wanting to associate with you, not because of you, but because of what you make them feel. What you make them feel is what she associates herself with you, right? It's not about you, it's an association, right? So technically, even the link and the bondage that you have with her is not really one. It is just one that you provide. The real wall for men is understanding that most of the time, you're just are just a conduit to her contentment, happiness, survival. But for you, very rarely you'll be able to achieve that. So once you understand that, you can use that as a strength and actually focus on those 4 buckets, because that will yield you more contentment than just chasing that validation from women. And when we're talking about bitches, it could be like you want to have kids with her, or you want to have you want to have a wife. Or it could be that you want to have many bitches. But at the same time, you need to understand that if you don't fill the other buckets, most likely you'll feel very empty, very void. That's what you'll find with a lot of people that have just focused on girls all the time. You cannot trust guys that are slaves to the pussy, right? Whether he's successful or not successful. The guy that is successful with pussy, but that still is always asking for more validation from pussy, will basically throw the other guy under the bus in order to get another pussy, even his best friend. Or the guy that is an incel, or the guy that basically doesn't have much success, pussy is such a scarcity that whatever fucking crumb he gets, he will basically throw everyone under the bus, right? Those are kind of like the pitfalls of you as a guy when you ever deal with someone, to understand where does he stand. Say, for example, can he walk away from his wife when his wife is being a bitch? Can he actually can he actually stand his ground? Do you want to be in a business relationship with someone that literally is beholden to his wife for every fucking decision? No, because basically you're literally in business with his wife. It's those little things that you need to understand whenever you deal with someone that has not filled those buckets. When you fill those buckets, each and every one of them, you understand who else has filled their buckets, these buckets as well, because they'll come in a position of contentment, of not needing to be always seeking something he doesn't have, because he's come from that position of fuck you. That's what we were talking about, right? Where literally you're happy of being who you want to be. And dealing with those people, it's a bit like dealing with bitches over time. You will want a specific segment that it's going to cater to you. You'll notice, and you're 28, Chris, right?
Yeah.
All right.
As although mentally I feel about 50.
Yeah, but yeah, we do have the hairline. Well, we have the respective hairline of a 50-year-old. I guess it's basically from cooking too much that the follicles burnt. Anyway, so once you understand, like for me, I'm mid-30s, right? I'm about to turn 35, and what you'll notice over time, I don't know how old you are when you're watching this podcast, and maybe that'll resonate with you, but late 20s, you'll start to understand more or less what you like. And as you get in your 30s, you'll start doing a friendship cleanse. You'll start doing girls cleanse. Like some also ran bitches that you basically used to fuck or even used to deal with. You don't want to deal with them, right? Because basically you already have a few people that you like to deal with that you actually get more value from the interaction with them than you do from some random bitches that maybe you get a few notches extra there. No, and that's a natural process. The same thing. You may have clients. You may have basically took every possible client at the beginning because you didn't have any money or you're just building your business. As you get your business built up, you won't need to have all those clients. You'll be like, I just want those clients. And what are those clients? Generally, clients that you make them pay more. So understand this idea of buckets, understand the idea of pyramid. And then afterwards, be fine to continue pushing forward in your journey. but you have to start first. So understand it's not a straight line. You'll have to make choices. You'll have to be first you be dumb, then you be smart, and then you be content.
Yeah, I mean, like, as when we're young, and I think this will be a good opportunity to round things off. When you're young, you all the time you're looking at these adults, these big adults who have all these skills and they can do all these things, but it doesn't bother you because you know that one day you'll be big and then you'll be much cooler than these stupid adults around you, right? But then you become an adult yourself, and then you realize, and you move through the world and you hang around with a bunch of friends who are usually on the same level as you. If you're a striver who's striving for financial success, you'll probably end up with friends like that. If you're a guy who's not really striving in anything, you'll probably end up with friends like that. And we're surrounded in our little bubbles. And the people who are going to do the best in life are the people who are content to bring other people into their bubbles that are better at certain things than them. And rather than coping, rather than hating, they can just learn from them and also and be happy that those people have obviously put more work into their path or have more power in their particular path, but also be happy with the path that they're on themselves, right? Like the average man is constantly barraged through the TV, through sports, through politics, through media, through just men driving by in cars more expensive, men walking by holding the hands of more beautiful women. He's constantly being bombarded and reminded of how inferior and how worthless he is in the grand scheme of things. And this kind of creates a state of affairs where he just enters into a sort of state of passiveness and a state of cope, and it's the only real way he can deal with it. And the only other way of dealing with it is not necessarily to think that you can be the best at everything, because no one has enough time in their life. No one has the genes to be the best at everything. You're not going to be Elon Musk. I'm sorry to the people who are listening to this podcast. You know, you're probably not going to be Elon Musk, right? You're not that level of scientific and financial achievement is, I'm not going to sit there and promise you that. But at the end of the day, like, you can build a life where you don't really have to be humiliated very often. You can build a life where you're just constantly just striving and moving forwards, and you very rarely are put in a position where you have no clue what's going on. You're very rarely put in a position. You can reach a point in life where you've kind of seen, and it's one of the best things about being a man, right? You can do a bunch of shit and be worldly and know that wherever you go and whatever happens to you and whatever opportunity presents itself, you're going to have a decent fighting chance, right? Like if you know, and like you're going to create a life for yourself where you don't really have to ever be shat on by anybody, where you don't really ever have to be humiliated. And this is the dream, surely. If life, I mean, if winning at the game of life is about anything, it's about that, and that, like, you know, me and French and Leon. Very sorry that you couldn't be here today. I dream of a podcast with me and Leon on it soon. We got to make it happen, French.
Next week we have a guest.
I've missed his energy, but yeah, I mean, if we're gonna teach you anything, right, it's gonna be that, you know. Because at the end of the day, like, once you fuck 10 bitches, you can fuck 1,000. Okay. Once we've taught you how to fuck the first 10 bitches, then we're going to start teaching you how to start making money, or some real cool, deep, dark sexual shit that you couldn't do with your average bitch. You know, we're not going to sit there and teach you the same fucking thing so that you can just have average results over and over again for your whole life. We're going to teach you how to get we're going to teach you how to complete all the tutorial missions on all the different fucking quests in life, right? And then once you've done them, we're going to teach you how to do the next fucking load. Okay, we're like this. This is the point. Like this is the one-stop shop. Like the dark triad, the three of us. We're the only. Who else is teaching you fucking everything? Who else is teaching you philosophies and telling you how to apply them to all of these different things? Who else on a podcast is going to sit there and is going to give you a piece of advice, and that same piece of advice is going to be as applicable for getting that girl into bed as making that money, as keeping yourself safe and growing your fucking reputation? Who gives you advice like that? Can you think of anyone, French?
Generally, but the thing is, it also depends upon the market. It's not for everyone. And when I say this is people want quick solutions. So I'll give you an example. You'll be like, all right, how can I get this girl back to my place? Or how can I get this girl anxious? I want to be toxic with this girl. I'm like, all right, do this. Right? Then it works until it doesn't, because basically she pushed back. And what does he do? Or what does that person do? Is he'll revert back to the nice guy he was, because that's his mindset. What we're helping you is basically getting the right mindset in terms of top to bottom, rather than focusing on bottom to top. If you're focusing too much on bottom to top with end solutions rather than full stack solutions, you'll end up being incongruent. But more importantly, you're just switching and churning as a chameleon without understanding the mechanism. So people will give you tools. People will give you all the tools, but without any of the framework that is needed to understand what is the interlink between each and every of these tools. And that's what we provide. That's what we give. Because in order for you to be fully autonomous, because really, in a way, it's that very intricate what they're doing. They're giving bits by bits a bit of information that people want, right? But when they realize that bit of information number one is not full, they can sell bit number two, right? Bit number three, etc., etc. What we have is basically a fully encompassing system where you understand how everything is interlinked, so you don't get drip fed whatever you need to buy in order to get to that information. Really. And at the end of the day, it makes your life and your mind more at peace. Why? Because you have that peace of mind that you know how everything fucking works, not just one little segment, because that's that one little thing you care about. Great, you get that one little thing you care about. But then once you open one door, it opens 10 new. Why? Because you didn't want to open the first 10 at the beginning. Simple. All right, I think we can wrap on this note. I think we went a bit over the usual time limit, but anyway, it was a wrap. Yeah, man. Anyway, guys, thanks for having followed us. Today is on the WG's podcast. I'll see you next week with Chris, Leon, and a surprise guest. All right.
Shit.
Anyway, thanks everybody for your support, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
See you later, guys.